The station called Astra Hold floated at the edge of known space. It was old, wide, and always cold. Metal halls echoed with heavy steps, claws, boots, and armored feet. This was where fighters from many worlds came to learn how to survive war. The combat hall was full. Rows of cadets stood in straight lines. Some were tall and scaled. Some were thick and horned. Others were thin, with glowing eyes or shifting skin. Their armor shined with energy plates and smart metal. Their suits hummed softly as systems checked their strength, speed, and defense. At the end of the last line stood a human woman. Her name was Lyra Hale. She was average in height and build. No sharp claws, no armor spikes. No glowing shield. She wore dark pants, old boots, and a faded brown jacket that looked like it came from a museum. The fabric was worn, the sleeves were patched. The collar was bent. It did not shine. It did not hum. It did not look like it belonged here. Whispers began almost at once. Several cadets turned their heads. A few made clicking sounds that meant laughter in their species. One tall cadet with stone-like skin leaned toward his friend and spoke loud enough for others to hear. "Is that clothing or trash?" Another cadet snorted. "Humans really came here wearing history?" Lyra heard them. She did not react. Her eyes stayed forward. Her hands rested calmly at her sides. At the front of the hall, the main instructor stepped onto the raised platform. His name was Commander Vexel. He was tall, wide, and sharp-edged, with silver markings across his face. His armor was black and gold, layered with advanced systems. The room went quiet. Commander Vexel scanned the lines. His eyes stopped when he reached the end. He stared at Lyra. The silence stretched. Then he spoke. "Human," he said, his voice cold and clear. "Step forward." Lyra obeyed. Her boots echoed as she walked to the open space before him, and finally, hundreds of eyes followed her. Vexel looked her up and down. His gaze paused on the jacket. "That," he said, pointing, "is what you chose to bring into my hall?" Lyra met his eyes. "Yes, Commander." A low sound of laughter rolled through the room. Vexel did not stop it. "This is a combat academy," he said, "not a memory house, not a charity ground. Cadets die here when they are weak." He stepped closer. That jacket would not stop a training blade. It would not block energy fire. It would not last 1 minute in the trials. Lyra did not answer. Vexel tilted his head. "Do humans not understand where they are?" Lyra spoke calmly. "Humans understand very well, Commander." More whispers spread. Vexel straightened. "You will be tested like the others. If you fail, the station will record it. No excuses." He turned away. "Return to your line." Lyra walked back without hurry. The lines tightened again. The room buzzed with quiet judgment. A cadet near Lyra shifted and spoke in a low voice. "You should have worn armor. That jacket will get you killed." Lyra did not turn. "Maybe," she said softly. The lights dimmed. A large screen lit up behind the instructor. "The first survival trial begins at dawn cycle," Vexel announced. "A frozen moon. Limited shelter, hostile terrain." The screen showed white storms and dark cliffs. "Your gear will be tested," he continued. "Your bodies will be tested. Your minds will break if you let them. Those who rely on weak things will fall first." The session ended. Cadets began to move out. Talking loudly now, laughter returned. Fingers pointed. Jokes spread about old earth cloth and soft humans. Lyra walked alone through the hallways of Astra Hold. The lights above flickered. The metal floor was cold through her boots. She reached her assigned room. It was small and bare. She removed the jacket carefully and placed it on the bed. Up close, it looked even older. The fabric showed burn marks. The inside lining had faint stitching that did not match modern design. Tiny marks were hidden under the collar. Lyra ran her fingers along the sleeve. "Still good," she whispered. She put it back on, and sat on the bed. Outside the station window, stars drifted slowly. The frozen moon waited. Dawn cycle came fast. Transport ships carried the cadets down to the surface. The cold hit like a wall when the doors opened. Wind screamed across white land. "Anguillus! Anguillus!" Advanced suits glowed as systems activated. Shields flickered on. Lyra stepped onto the ice. Her jacket did not glow, but it tightened around her body, adjusting quietly. Commander Vexel watched from the control deck above, his arms crossed. "Begin," he ordered. The cadets moved. Some ran. Some jumped across ice gaps. Others used thrusters. Lyra walked. Her boots pressed deep into the snow. She chose her path carefully. She avoided open ground. She watched the wind. A cadet ahead slipped and fell hard. His suit sparked. He cried out. Others passed him. Lyra stopped. She knelt, grabbed his arm, and helped him stand. She guided him to a rock ridge where the wind was weaker. "Stay here," she said. "Wait for rescue." He stared at her jacket. "Why are you not freezing?" She did not answer. She moved on. Above, sensors tracked her. Commander Vexel frowned. "Her body heat is stable," an officer said. "No visible power source." Vexel said nothing. The storm grew worse. Ice cracked. Training drones activated, rising from hidden points. They fired warning shots. Cadets scattered. Lyra dropped low and slid behind cover. A shot struck her shoulder, but the jacket absorbed it. The fabric darkened, then returned to normal. Lyra exhaled slowly. She moved again. Hours passed. Cadets grew tired. Systems failed. Panic spread. Lyra kept moving. As the sun dipped, the ground shook. Something large moved beneath the ice. The drones pulled back. Alarms sounded. "This was not scheduled," an officer said sharply. The ice broke. A massive shape rose from below. Thick hide. Long limbs. A mouthful of bone. Cadets screamed. "Cadets screamed, Will!" said Paul. Commander Vexel stood up. "That creature is real," he said. "All units fall back." The monster roared. Lyra stood still. The wind tore at her jacket. She pulled the collar up and took one step forward. Above, Commander Vexel watched. For the first time he did not speak, and the frozen moon went silent. The frozen moon was alive with storm and shadow. The wind tore across the ice plains, carrying a cold so sharp it felt like knives on skin. The cadets ran, slid, and stumbled over jagged snow as the monstrous creature advanced. Its eyes glowed faint red, and each step cracked the ice beneath it. The drones fired, but energy shots bounced uselessly off thick hide. Fear spread like wildfire among the group. Some shouted. Some froze in place, staring at the approaching terror. Lyra moved slowly. Her boots sank into snow, leaving deep tracks. Her jacket tightened around her shoulders. She could feel it moving, almost alive. Bing! It absorbed the biting cold and the shocks from the drone fire. She did not look at the other cadets. She only focused on the creature and the path ahead. A loud armored cadet named Rock fell hard onto the ice. His thruster suit malfunctioned in the cold, and he struggled to get up. He shouted at the creature, waving his heavy arms. The monster roared and shifted its head toward him. Rock panicked and tried to run, but the ice cracked under his weight. He slipped again. Lyra reached him. Without hesitation, she grabbed his arm and pulled him to his feet. Her jacket stretched and flexed as she moved, shrugging off impacts that would have shredded normal armor. She guided him toward a low ridge of jagged rock that offered a small shelter. Rock looked at her in disbelief. You're not freezing?" he stammered. Lyra only nodded and whispered, "Move here. Stay low. Wait for the others." Roke's mouth opened, but he had no words. The storm screamed around them, carrying the creature's growls across the ice. Lyra released him and continued forward. The other cadets struggled with their failing suits. Sensors blinked warnings of low heat and power loss. Energy shields collapsed. The drones pulled back, hissing and sparking from the monster's proximity. Panic spread through the ranks, and some cadets shouted blame at each other. Above, in the command deck of Astra Hold, Commander Vexel leaned over a console. His eyes tracked every movement on the frozen moon. He had seen many trials, but this was different. Something about the human in the old Earth jacket was troubling. Her vitals remained steady. Her path was direct. Her movements precise. Her body temperature is stable, said an officer. All readings normal, even without shield support. Vexel's jaw tightened. Impossible! He watched her climb. A ridge of ice. A shard cracked beneath her weight, but she did not falter. She slid down carefully, using handholds where others would have slipped and fallen. The jacket clung to her, protecting her from cuts, scrapes, and cold. It adapted in ways he could not explain. Below, the monster advanced. It lunged at a small group of cadets who had frozen in fear. One cadet screamed as its claws tore through their armor. Another tried to fire, but the weapon fizzled. The creature was stronger, faster, and more dangerous than any training simulation. Lyra watched. She knew she had no time to waste. She could not stop it with brute force. She could not outrun it either. She moved to higher ground, crouching behind a ridge of ice that overlooked the creature. The wind whipped her hair across her face, but she ignored it. She studied the monster's movements. It was smart, it circled, it tested, it hesitated. It was curious, and that curiosity was its weakness. Lyra stepped out. The monster turned toward her. Its glowing red eyes focused on the small human. It snarled, a sound that made the ground vibrate. Cadets scattered, but Lyra did not run. She raised her hands slowly, not in surrender, but in focus. The jacket stiffened, wrapping around her body like a living shield. When the creature lunged, she sidestepped, using the momentum of its attack to make it crash against a jagged ice wall. A shower of sparks and frozen snow flew into the air. Other cadets gasped. Some cheered. Some stared in disbelief. The monster shook its head and roared. It turned again, faster now, trying to predict her moves. Lyra moved with it, not attacking, not defending in the way the others expected. She observed. She waited. Another cadet, a lithe alien named Fail, tried to flank the creature with a weapon. The monster snapped at him, and he fell. Lyra did not hesitate. She moved in a sweeping motion, stepping lightly, dodging strikes, and guiding the monster toward a narrow crevice between ice walls. The crevice was too small for the creature. It snarled, hit the walls, and paused. Lyra pressed forward, using calm and patience. The creature lashed, but she was always just out of reach. Her jacket absorbed blows and scratches. It shifted to cover weak points. Commander Vexel leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "How?" he whispered. An officer shook his head. "There is no explanation. No energy source. Nothing in the suit could do that." Lyra's strategy became clear. She was using the creature's strength against itself, its curiosity, its aggression, its impatience, all exploited. It could not escape the trap she was leading it into. The storm howled louder. Ice cracked beneath the monster's weight. Small crevices opened, and snow shifted. Lyra guided it closer to a cliff edge, where falling ice would trap it further. She stayed calm, never hesitating, never panicking. Other cadets watched. Fear turned into awe. The ones who had mocked her jacket before whispered in disbelief. The old human clothing was not weak. It was alive. In a sense, it reacted. It protected. It allowed her to survive where advanced armor failed. The monster roared one final time and lunged. Lyra sidestepped. "It's the place!" The creature slipped on the ice, crashing into the edge of a cliff. Snow and rock tumbled, pinning its limbs. It struggled, but it was trapped. Silence fell over the frozen plain. Only the wind remained. Lyra stepped back. Her jacket relaxed. The cold no longer seemed to pierce her. She looked at the other cadets. Some were injured, some trembling, some staring in amazement. She approached Rock and Fail, helping them to their feet. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. They nodded, speechless. Above, Commander Vexel did not move. His jaw was tight. His hands rested on the console, but he did not speak. For the first time, the instructor saw a human outperform machines, outthink predators, and survive by skill and will, not by technology. The cadets began to gather. They whispered to each other. The laughter from the academy, the jokes about old Earth clothing, had disappeared. In its place was respect mixed with fear. Lyra looked back at the trapped monster. She could see its breathing heavy, its eyes burning red. She did not relax. She knew more challenges would come. The frozen moon was unforgiving. The storm was relentless, and training was only the beginning. She turned to guide the cadets back to the safe zone. Each step she took, the jacket moved with her, protecting, stretching, absorbing. Commander Vexel watched silently. His pride and authority felt challenged in ways he had never imagined. The cadets followed her, some still shivering, some still shaken, all now quiet. They realized that strength was not in glowing armor or advanced weapons. Strength was in intelligence, patience, and courage. Lyra led them across the ice, her boots leaving marks that would remain for days. The storm continued to rage, but she was calm. She was human. She was prepared. And the monster below was trapped, because she understood how to survive when everything else failed. By the time they reached a sheltered ridge, darkness had fallen. The winds were harsh, but the cadets felt safer. Lyra stopped and looked back at the monster. Its eyes glowed faintly through the snow. It moved, but it could not escape. Arco spoke first. How did you do that?" Lyra touched her jacket, smoothing the fabric. "You wait. You watch. You learn. You don't panic." Fail shivered. "That jacket, it's not just clothing, is it?" Lyra shook her head. "No, it's history. It's knowledge. It is Earth, remembering what to do when the worst comes." "Above," Commander Vexel finally spoke, his voice low and tight. "Human, your methods are effective." He did not smile. He did not move. He only watched as the cadets gathered around Lyra. The storm grew stronger. The frozen moon was alive with danger. The trial was far from over, and Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The frozen moon was silent after the trap had held the monster, but the wind still screamed across the ice plains. Lyra led the cadets toward a safer area, a ridge that offered partial shelter from the storm. Her boots left clean prints in the snow, each step steady, careful, controlled. The cadets followed closely, some still trembling, some in awe, some silent in respect. Their advanced armor and suits no longer seemed important. They had seen the strength of the human in the worn jacket. Rock and Fail stayed near Lyra, trying to understand what they had witnessed. "Your jacket," Rock whispered. "It saved you." "It saved us. How does it do that?" Lyra did not answer. She kept moving, eyes scanning the horizon. The storm ripped at her hair and whipped the snow into their faces. She could feel the cold, but it did not touch her. The jacket had stiffened again, adjusting to the temperature, absorbing the wind, blocking the bite of the ice. The other cadets whispered among themselves. Many had stopped laughing, stopped mocking, and now watched her with wide eyes. Some glanced at their own suits, feeling their glow and hum were useless compared to the simple strength Lyra showed. As they reached the ridge, the wind shifted. A deep rumble came from below, from where the monster struggled in the crevice. Its red eyes glowed through the ice cracks. It shifted, thrashing against the walls. It was alive, dangerous, angry, but trapped. Fail stepped back. "It could break free," she said. "We have to get away." Lyra shook her head. "Not yet. We observe. We wait. Strength is in patience." The cadets looked at her, unsure if she was brave or foolish. Above them, Commander Vexel watched silently from the station. His console showed the cadets' progress, their vitals, their positions, and the trapped creature. He frowned. He had trained thousands of soldiers, humans and non-humans alike, but he had never seen anyone handle a threat like this, with calm and control, instead of panic and aggression. "This is human thinking," he muttered to himself. Calculating, precise, fearless, yet reckless in its own way. Back on the moon, Lyra moved carefully along the ridge. The snow shifted beneath her boots, and her jacket adjusted automatically, hardening where friction threatened to cut her. She kept an eye on the monster, which was still thrashing. Its movements were predictable, yet terrifying. Any mistake could endanger the cadets. She reached a point where she could see further across the ice plains. There were hidden cracks and deep crevices that no sensors on the cadets' suits could detect. One wrong step could send a person plummeting into freezing water below. She memorized the safe paths and motioned for the cadets to follow. Roke stepped carefully behind her. "You see everything," he said softly. "How do you know the right steps?" Lyra glanced at him. "Experience, observation, focus. You do not run blind. You think before you move." The cadets followed, their fears slowly turning into understanding. They realized that the storm and the monster were tests of their mind, not just their armor or weapons. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed across the ice. The monster had broken part of the crevice wall. Snow and ice tumbled down. Cadets shouted in panic. Rock nearly fell, but Lyra grabbed his arm. Her jacket stretched and flexed, absorbing his weight as she pulled him to safety. The monster roared, its eyes fixed on her again. This time it tried to leap, but the gap was too small. Lyra kept moving, leading it along the ridge toward a narrow canyon. Her jacket moved with her like it understood her intentions. It shifted panels of reinforced fabric to protect against impact, absorbing blows and cold that would have frozen or cut anyone else. And other cadets watched, amazed. Even the most confident among them, who had mocked her before, stayed close and followed. Some whispered in disbelief. Some just stared, unable to comprehend what they saw. The wind grew stronger, cutting across the plains like blades. The temperature dropped even further. Many cadets' suits failed partially. Shields flickered and died. Sensors reported low heat levels and system errors. Panic threatened to rise again, but Lyra remained calm. "Do not panic," she told them quietly. "Follow me. Watch me. Move as I move. You first." Sat down. Her voice was steady, firm, and commanding without raising volume. The cadets obeyed. Slowly, carefully, they moved as a unit. Lyra scanned the terrain, noting cracks, icy patches, and hidden cliffs. She kept the monster moving toward the canyon she had chosen. Commander Vexel's console showed a troubling pattern. Cadets who panicked were often the ones in danger, while the human in the old jacket moved with precision. He had never seen such instinctive understanding of survival. The readings were confusing. No energy shield, no force field, no mechanical advantage. Yet she survived where the best suits failed. The monster struggled, now cornered. Its massive head snapped at the ice walls, and it roared. Snow and ice flew everywhere. Cadets gasped and froze. Lyra stepped forward without hesitation. The jacket wrapped around her arms and shoulders like living armor, absorbing blows that would have crushed a normal human. She used the creature's momentum against it, sidestepping, dodging, guiding it into tighter space. Roke stumbled but did not fall. Fail stayed close, following Lyra's lead. She reached the canyon edge where the walls were narrow and jagged. The monster had no room to turn. Lyra moved in, timing every step with the creature's strikes. It lunged once more. Lyra shifted her weight, stepped to the side, and the monster slammed into the canyon wall. The ice cracked and splintered, rocks fell. Its limbs were trapped. It thrashed violently but could not escape. The cadets gasped. Some laughed in relief, some just stared. Rock and Fail looked at her in awe. You trapped it," Rock said, voice shaking. Lyra nodded. Patience, timing, observation, not force. Not luck. The monster growled, its red eyes burning, but it could not move. Lyra approached slowly. She touched a part of her jacket near her chest. The fabric responded, stiffening to protect her from the creature's final attempts to reach her. "Stay back," she told the cadets. "It is not dead. It is alive. Yet, we must respect it." Commander Vexel remained silent in the control deck. His mouth was tight. His eyes followed every move. He had been trained to command and control, but he had never been a witness to this. The human in the old jacket did not rely on technology. She relied on herself and something older, wiser, stronger than any suit he had ever known. The cadets gathered around her. Many were injured or exhausted, but none dared speak loudly. Lyra guided them away from the trapped monster and toward safer ground. Her jacket continued to protect her, absorbing every cold blast, every slip, every potential injury. As they moved, some cadets began to whisper questions. "What is that jacket? How is she doing this? Can humans really survive like this?" Lyra did not answer directly. She walked steadily, eyes forward, scanning the frozen moon. She had learned to trust her instincts, her mind, and the old lessons stored in her jacket. Equipment could fail. Technology could break. But knowledge and skill, those could survive anything. The wind screamed around them. Snow swirled in blinding sheets. The cadets followed, tired, fearful, but increasingly confident. They realized that survival was more than armor, more than weapons, more than energy shields. It was observation, patience, and courage. Hours passed. The cadets moved carefully through the ice plains. Guided by Lyra, they encountered hidden crevices, deep snowdrifts, and weak ice patches. One by one, she helped each cadet navigate the dangers, her jacket taking impacts that would have harmed anyone else. The storm was relentless. Yet Lyra remained calm. Each movement was deliberate, measured, precise. The cadets began to imitate her. Following her example, the fear of the unknown began to fade, replaced by awe and trust. Above, Commander Vexel finally spoke. His voice was low, almost inaudible. "Human, your skill is remarkable. I do not understand it, yet I cannot deny it." Lyra did not hear him. She was focused on leading her group to the safe zone, to shelter, to survival. She moved with purpose, teaching without words, showing without boasting, protecting without hesitation. As night fell, the storm finally began to ease. The cadets reached a ridge that offered partial shelter from the wind. Lyra stopped and looked back at the canyon where the monster remained trapped. Its red eyes glowed faintly through the darkness. It moved, but it could not escape. The cadets gathered around her, exhausted, cold, but safe. They looked at the jacket, at the human who had led them, and their fear turned to respect. Lyra adjusted the collar of her jacket. It had been tested, torn slightly, but it had held. It had protected, adapted, and survived. She spoke softly. "Remember this. Observe it. Think. Be patient. Strength is not always what you wear. Sometimes it is what you know, what you feel, and how you act when everything else fails." The cadets nodded silently. They had learned something far more important than any lesson from their advanced suits or combat modules. And above, Commander Vexel watched, silent, troubled, and unwilling to speak. For the first time he had seen the truth. The human, the simple jacket, the quiet skill, these were more powerful than anything he had trained, more effective than the best technology. The frozen moon stretched endlessly around them, cold and silent. The storm had passed, but danger remained. The monster was alive, trapped, and angry. Other challenges waited. Lyra stood tall. Her jacket moved with her, absorbing the cold, the blows, the fear. The cadets looked at her with new understanding. And the instructor finally realized that humans had strength that no machine could measure, no suit could replicate, and no alien could fully comprehend. The night settled. The ridge was quiet, but Lyra knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning, and the cadets understood for the first time what true survival meant. The night on the frozen moon was dark and quiet, but the silence was fragile. The wind still carried shards of ice across the plains, cutting through the cadets' suits. Lyra led them along a narrow ridge, guiding each step carefully. The cadets followed closely, their fear mixed with growing respect. They had survived the first trial, but none of them knew that the true challenge had yet to come. Commander Vexel watched silently from Astra Hold. His console showed unusual activity near the far edge of the moon. Sensors detected movement, faster and more coordinated than the creature they had just trapped. He frowned. This was not part of any training exercise. He had expected controlled trials, but the readings showed real threats, ships approaching, with engines barely cloaked against detection. Back on the moon, Lyra paused at the edge of a small valley. She crouched and scanned the ground. Tracks were visible in the snow, too precise and too deep for normal creatures. These were vehicles, landing crafts. Enemy forces were here. Not part of the simulation, not part of any lesson. Real danger. Cadets, she whispered. Stay close. Follow my lead. We move quietly. Rock, still tired but recovering from the last encounter, leaned forward. What is it? More monsters? Worse, Lyra said. Humans call them soldiers. They will try to take us down quickly. Fail, her eyes wide and glowing faintly, spoke next. We are not ready. Our weapons are weak. Our shields, they are failing. Lyra shook her head. We are always ready. If we think, if we act, we survive. They moved carefully down into the valley. The storm had left snowdrifts that partially hid their tracks, but the wind carried noise easily. Lyra used her knowledge of movement and timing. She scanned every corner, every ridge, every crevice. Her jacket moved with her, stretching and stiffening in ways that protected her arms and shoulders from hidden ice spikes and cuts. Suddenly, distant lights flickered across the snow. Shadows moved. Lyra froze and raised a hand. The cadets stopped immediately. Enemy patrols, she whispered. Do not move until I signal. A squad of alien soldiers emerged from the snow. Their suits were black and angular, designed to blend with shadows. Their weapons glowed faintly. They moved in coordinated steps, scanning for targets. Commander Vexel watched the moon from above, tension in his shoulders. His best cadets would have panicked. Every movement of the patrol showed efficiency and lethality, but he knew somehow that Lyra's group was different. He could see her scanning, waiting, planning. Lyra motioned the cadets down into a small depression in the snow. They crouched, pressing close to the ground. The patrol passed without seeing them. Lyra's jacket had absorbed her heat signature partially, blending with the environment. When the patrol was gone, she guided the cadets forward. They moved quickly but carefully, avoiding open ground. Each step required thought. Every slip could be fatal. Yet Lyra moved steadily, the jacket shifting and flexing to protect her from unseen dangers. Hours passed. The valley stretched ahead, dark and treacherous. Suddenly a sharp alarm rang from the cadets' suits. Sensors detected incoming fire. A squad of enemy soldiers had discovered their position. Energy blasts struck nearby ice, sending shards flying. Cadets scattered in panic. Lyra stayed calm. She moved between them, shielding cadets with her jacket, pushing them into small depressions in the snow. She guided them as if she had walked this battlefield 1,000 times. Her jacket stiffened and absorbed impacts that would have injured anyone else. The cadets watched in awe. They realized that survival was no longer about armor, shields, or weapons. It was about thinking, observing, and acting in the right moment. Lyra's calm presence was the only shield they needed. Roke shouted over the wind, "We can't hold them off! They're too strong." "You don't hold them off," Lyra said, her voice firm. "You survive! You move. You use your mind." The enemy soldiers advanced, firing in controlled bursts. Cadets scrambled, but Lyra directed them, pointing to weak points in the ice and natural cover. The jacket absorbed each near hit. Shards of energy struck it, leaving no lasting harm. The patrol reached their position. One soldier stepped on a weak patch of ice. It gave way under his weight. He fell screaming into a small crevice. The others paused, confused. Lyra saw the opportunity. She moved swiftly, guiding cadets to flank the patrol. They did not attack aggressively but used distraction, positioning, and movement to force the enemies into mistakes. The patrol was disoriented. One soldier fell into a snowdrift, another slipped on ice, and the rest hesitated. Lyra led the cadets in a controlled retreat, keeping the enemies unbalanced. Commander Vexel watched, stunned. He had expected chaos. He had expected failure. But the human moved with precision, using nothing but knowledge and instinct. Her jacket did things his instruments could not explain. Lyra and the cadets reached higher ground, overlooking the valley where the enemy patrol had been. They could see the black suits struggling to reorganize. "Good," Lyra whispered. "We move while they are confused." They continued, careful and quiet. Snow fell lightly now, covering tracks and masking movement. The jacket protected Lyra from cold and small impacts. Every cadet who followed her survived. None had been injured seriously. Night fell, and the stars shone cold and distant. Lyra guided them to a small outcrop, providing shelter from the wind and view of the valley below. Cadets huddled close to her, exhausted but alive. Roke looked at her, shivering. How did you do that? You saved us again." Lyra shook her head. "I did not save you. You saved yourselves. You followed me. You thought. You moved. That is how humans survive, not with strength alone, but with thought, patience, and courage." Fail glanced at the valley. "Those soldiers, they will return. They will be stronger." Lyra nodded. "I know if you ask me to direct myself, there are something but the dogs. And we will be ready. We learn. We observe. We act." Above, Commander Vexel spoke quietly to his officers. "I have never seen anything like this. Every prediction has failed. Every sensor reading is wrong. That human, she is something else." The cadets prepared for the next wave, guided by Lyra. They learned quickly, following her every step. She showed them how to move silently, how to use cover, how to stay calm. Her jacket remained central, absorbing impacts, adjusting to the cold, and moving with her body. The enemy forces were indeed returning, larger, faster, and more organized than the first patrol. Energy weapons glowed faintly as they moved across the valley. Cadets shivered in fear, but Lyra's calm presence kept them steady. She led them into hidden crevices, over weak ice, along paths the enemies did not expect. Her jacket protected her and allowed her to guide others safely. Every near miss was calculated. Every step was precise. The enemy approached closer. They fired volleys into the snow, but Lyra stayed low. She guided the cadets to move in small, controlled bursts. One by one, they reached higher ground without injury. Commander Vexel could only watch silently. His authority and control felt useless in comparison. A human, with an old jacket, was teaching his cadets how to survive when every advanced tool failed. Lyra stopped on a ridge. She turned to the cadets. "We wait," she said quietly. "We observe. Then we move." The cadets nodded, finally understanding. Survival was not about weapons or shields. It was about mind, timing, and courage. The enemy soldiers reached the base of the ridge. They searched for the cadets and UNI. They fired weapons into the snow. Lyra stayed still. She calculated every move. She saw their weaknesses, their impatience, their errors. Then she moved, slowly, deliberately, guiding cadets down a hidden path behind the ridge. They avoided detection. One by one, they slipped past the enemy. The soldiers fired blindly, but none hit. Hours passed. The cadets moved safely, guided by Lyra. The storm returned lightly, snow masking tracks. Every step was calculated, every breath controlled. At last they reached a safer plateau, partially sheltered from the wind. Cadets huddled around Lyra, cold but alive. They looked at her jacket, at her calm eyes, and understood. "You survived," Roke said softly. "No," Lyra said. "We survived." Together. Above, Commander Vexel removed his helmet. He leaned over the console, silent. His cadets had not just survived a monster. They had survived real enemy forces, and it had been the human with an old jacket who had led them. The frozen moon was cold, silent, and dangerous. But Lyra and the cadets had survived another night, and the instructor knew, finally, that humans had a strength no armor, no weapon, and no technology could match. The next challenge would come soon. The night was not over. The enemies were still out there. But Lyra smiled faintly, adjusting her jacket. She was ready. The cadets trusted her, and the instructor was silent, watching, learning, and realizing something he had never admitted before. Humans survived in ways others could not even imagine. The frozen moon had grown darker. The snowstorm had eased, leaving only a bitter wind that cut through every cadet's suit. Lyra led the group along a narrow ridge, carefully choosing each step. She could feel the cold, but her jacket absorbed it, stiffening where necessary, wrapping around her arms and shoulders like a shield. Her eyes scanned the horizon constantly. She knew danger still waited. The enemy forces that had found them earlier were not gone. They were reorganizing. They were stronger now, and they would not stop until they captured or destroyed the cadets. Roke moved beside her, shivering. "We cannot keep going like this," he said. "Our suits are failing. Our weapons are weak. We are tired." "You are stronger than you think," Lyra said. "You have survived worse. Keep your focus. Follow me." Fail, the lithe alien cadet, looked at her jacket. "Your jacket, it saved you, again." "How can it do that?" Lyra touched the collar. "It remembers what humans learned. It protects, it adapts, but it is not enough without skill. You survive with your mind, not just your armor." The ridge ended, and the cadets faced a cliffside path leading down into a narrow canyon. The enemy forces had set up patrols here, and Lyra could see their shadows moving along the ice. Energy weapons glowed faintly as they scanned for movement. "Stay close," Lyra whispered. "Move quietly. Watch every step." They descended slowly. The ice beneath their boots was thin in places. One wrong step could send a cadet plummeting into freezing water far below. The enemy patrols were closer now. They moved in perfect coordination, scanning every crevice. Suddenly, a patrol spotted Rock. He froze, unsure what to do. One soldier fired, and energy struck near his boots, sending shards of ice flying. Rock stumbled, nearly falling. Lyra reacted instantly. She stepped forward, her jacket absorbing the blast and protecting her arm as she grabbed Roke and pulled him behind a boulder. The other cadets froze in fear. "Do not panic," she said quietly. "Move as I move. Watch me." Her calm presence steadied them. She guided them in small, careful steps, avoiding open ground and hidden cracks. Every movement was precise. Every decision deliberate. Her jacket shifted and flexed with her body, absorbing impacts and protecting her from small cuts and abrasions that would have injured others. The enemy soldiers approached the ridge. They fired into the snow, searching for the cadets. Lyra waited, watching their patterns. She noted their timing, their movement, their mistakes. When the soldiers stepped on a thin patch of ice, it cracked beneath their weight. They fell, surprised, and Lyra seized the opportunity. "Move!" she whispered. The cadets followed her, moving down a narrow canyon path hidden by ice and snow. The soldiers scrambled to recover, but it was too late. The cadets disappeared into the shadow of the canyon, unseen. Hours passed. The moon grew colder. The wind howled through the narrow passages. The cadets were exhausted, but Lyra remained calm. She stopped only briefly to check each cadet, ensuring no one lagged behind or was injured. Rock looked at her in awe. You guide us without fear. How do you do it?" Lyra smiled faintly. Fear is natural. You cannot ignore it. You control it. You move despite it. That is how humans survive. Fail glanced at the canyon walls. The enemy, they are stronger now. They will come for us again. Then we will be ready, Lyra said. We observe. We plan, we act when the time is right. They reached a small plateau that offered partial shelter from the wind. Lyra gathered the cadets. They were cold, exhausted, and shaken, but alive. Rest here briefly, she said. Watch the enemy. Learn. They will attack again, but we will be ready. The cadets huddled close, drawing warmth from each other and from the jacket's protection. Lyra touched the collar and sleeves. The fabric had been tested, torn slightly, but it held. It had protected her and the cadets from blasts, cold, and impact. Above, Commander Vexel watched in silence. He had seen humans survive monsters and storms, but now he watched them survive real enemy soldiers. And it was not their weapons, not their armor, but a human with an old Earth jacket leading them. He could not deny it. The strength of knowledge, skill, and courage was beyond any machine he commanded. Suddenly, the sound of engines echoed from the distant ridge. The enemy forces had arrived with reinforcements, faster and more coordinated than before. Energy weapons glowed as they advanced, and the cadets stiffened with fear. "Stay calm," Lyra whispered. "Observe. Watch. Move." The enemy moved into the valley below. They fired into the snow, trying to flush the cadets out. Lyra calculated their movement, noting weaknesses and patterns. When a group of soldiers approached a narrow ice bridge, she guided the cadets to higher ground hidden from view. "Follow me," she said. The cadets moved quietly, stepping carefully on snow and ice, following her every action. The jacket absorbed blows from falling ice and energy blasts, protecting Lyra as she guided the group. Every step was measured, every breath controlled. The enemy soldiers paused, frustrated. They could not find the cadets. Some shouted, some fired blindly into the snow, but none hit it. Lyra smiled faintly. This was exactly what she had planned. They would make mistakes. They would expose weaknesses. Hours passed. The cadets moved through narrow passages, hidden valleys, and icy tunnels. Lyra guided them with skill, teaching them without words. They learned to move silently, to use cover, to stay calm. Her jacket moved with her, protecting her and those closest to her. Suddenly, the enemy soldiers found a hidden crevice and fired directly into it. Snow exploded around the cadets. Roke stumbled, nearly falling. Lyra grabbed him, absorbing the impact of the blast through the jacket. "Do not panic!" she shouted. "Move! Now!" The cadets followed her through a narrow tunnel hidden by snow. The soldiers fired, but the cadets were already gone. The enemies cursed, frustrated, and began searching in the wrong direction. They emerged onto a small plateau, partially shielded from the wind. The cadets huddled close. Exhausted, cold, and shaken, they looked at Lyra with awe and respect. "You survived," Roke said softly. "No," Lyra replied. "We survived together." The wind howled around them. The enemy soldiers would return stronger and faster. But the cadets had learned the most important lesson. Survival was not about armor, weapons, or shields. It was about mind, courage, and timing. Lyra touched her jacket again. It had been tested repeatedly, yet it had held. It had protected her, absorbed impact, and adapted. But it was not enough without skill. Without observation, patience, and courage, it would have been useless. The cadets rested briefly. They were cold and tired, but alive. Lyra used the time to scan the horizon. The enemy forces were regrouping, but she had already calculated their likely approach. When they came again, the cadets would be ready. Commander Vexel removed his helmet and leaned over the console. He had never seen anything like this. His cadets would have panicked, failed, or died. Yet the human in the old Earth jacket had led them, protected them, and ensured survival. The instructor realized finally that humans had a strength no armor or weapon could match. The frozen moon stretched endlessly around them, silent and cold. The night was long, and danger still waited. But Lyra adjusted her jacket and smiled faintly. She was ready. The cadets trusted her, and the instructor remained silent, learning something he had never admitted before. Humans survived in ways others could not even imagine. The frozen moon lay under a dark sky, its surface glittering with ice and snow. The storm had faded, leaving only a bitter wind that cut through the cadets' suits. Lyra led them along a narrow ridge, every step deliberate and careful. Her jacket shifted with her movements, absorbing the cold and protecting her from small hazards hidden in the snow. The cadets followed closely, exhausted but alive. They had survived monsters, storms, and enemy patrols, yet Lyra knew that survival was not finished. Danger still waited, and they could not let their guard down. The enemy forces were still out there. Sensors had tracked them retreating into hidden valleys, regrouping for another assault. Their ships were faster now, more coordinated, their energy weapons glowing faintly in the dark. Commander Vexel watched silently from Astra Hold. He had never seen anything like this. His cadets would have panicked, yet the human in the old Earth jacket had led them, protected them, and kept them alive. Lyra paused at the edge of a frozen canyon. The cadets huddled behind her, shivering and exhausted. Their weapons had limited energy, their shields were weakening, and their suits had suffered countless minor damages. Rock looked at her wide-eyed. "Do we have to fight again?" "We fight only if necessary," Lyra said. "Observation first, timing second. Strength comes last." Fail glanced at the valley below. "The enemy, they are returning. Faster, better prepared." "Then we wait," Lyra said. "We act only when they make a mistake. They will." The cadets followed her instructions, huddled quietly, listening to the wind and the faint sounds of distant engines. The frozen moon seemed endless, dark, and unforgiving. Lyra's jacket absorbed the wind, keeping her warm. It stiffened around her shoulders, forming a shield against the cold and any stray shards of ice. She studied the enemy's movements, noting their patterns and timing. Hours passed. The enemy advanced. They fired into the valley, trying to force the cadets out of hiding. Lyra moved carefully, guiding them from cover to cover. Each step was precise. Every movement was calculated. The cadets followed her silently, learning instinctively. Rock whispered, How do you stay so calm?" "You control fear," Lyra said. "You do not ignore it. You act despite it. That is how humans survive." The enemy soldiers approached a narrow bridge over a frozen chasm. Their boots struck the ice, making it crack faintly. Lyra noticed immediately. She guided the cadets to higher ground, out of sight. One soldier misstepped and slipped, nearly falling into the chasm. The others shouted in alarm, distracted. "Move!" Lyra whispered. The cadets followed her along a hidden path behind the ridge. The enemy fired blindly, but none hit. Lyra's jacket protected her from small energy blasts and falling ice, allowing her to focus entirely on guiding the group. Every cadet who followed survived. None were seriously injured. The enemy regrouped, frustrated, their patience thinning. Lyra observed their movements carefully. They would make mistakes, she knew it. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed across the plateau. Part of the ridge had collapsed under weight. Snow and ice fell, sending shards flying. Roke nearly fell, but Lyra grabbed his arm and steadied him. Her jacket absorbed the impact from falling ice. "Do not panic," she said. "Move slowly. Every step matters." The cadets continued, carefully following her lead. They passed through narrow tunnels, hidden valleys, and icy cliffs. The enemy forces were scattered, confused, and frustrated. Lyra guided the cadets to a plateau that offered partial shelter from the wind and better visibility of the valley below. "Rest here briefly," she said. "Observe the enemy, learn their mistakes, then we move." The cadets huddled close, exhausted and cold. Lyra adjusted the collar of her jacket, which had been tested countless times. It had absorbed blows from energy weapons, snow, ice, and even impacts from falling debris. It had protected her and allowed her to guide others safely. Commander Vexel finally spoke from Astra Hold, his voice low. "I do not understand it. I cannot explain it. Yet I cannot deny it. The human survives and leads where I would expect failure." Lyra scanned the horizon. The enemy forces were regrouping, ready to strike again. She could see small squads moving along the ice, weapons glowing faintly. Her mind worked quickly. She calculated positions, timing, and terrain. She would use their strength against them, just as she had done before. "Cadets," she said quietly, "watch me. We survive because we think. We survive because we act with patience. Follow me closely." They moved silently along hidden paths, careful not to reveal their presence. The wind carried their sounds, but the cadets stayed focused. Each step required precision. Each breath was controlled. Lyra's jacket protected her from small hazards, and it helped guide the cadets by allowing her to move freely and confidently. The enemy soldiers reached a narrow ice bridge. One misstep caused a loud crack. The bridge trembled. Lyra seized the moment. "Now!" she whispered. The cadets moved quickly but quietly, slipping past the enemy, using hidden crevices and shadows. The soldiers fired, but none hit. Confused and frustrated, they shouted to each other, trying to find the intruders. Roke and Fail followed Lyra closely, exhausted but trusting her completely. They had learned that survival was more than shields, weapons, or armor. It was patience, observation, and courage. Hours passed as they moved across the frozen moon. The enemy forces pursued, but Lyra stayed ahead, guiding the cadets. She used terrain to her advantage, hiding them behind ice walls, narrow cliffs, and snowdrifts. Each near miss was calculated, each danger avoided. Finally, they reached a plateau that offered a wide view of the valley. The enemy forces were still advancing, but they were tired, disorganized, and frustrated. Lyra observed their movements carefully. She noted weaknesses and timing errors. She could use this to her advantage. "Prepare yourselves," she whispered. "We act together, precisely, and we force them to retreat." The cadets gathered, following her instructions. They moved as a unit, coordinated, careful, and confident. When the enemy soldiers approached the plateau, Lyra led the cadets in controlled movements, using cover, timing, and terrain to stay hidden and protected. The enemy fired blindly, but the cadets moved as if they had been invisible. Lyra guided them to a narrow canyon that would funnel the enemy into a trap. She used her knowledge of physics, terrain, and human skill to manipulate their movements. The soldiers were forced into the narrow canyon, confused and disoriented. "Now," she whispered. The cadets moved along the canyon walls, forcing the enemy soldiers into dead ends. One by one, the soldiers were trapped or forced to retreat. Lyra stayed at the rear, guiding everyone safely. Her jacket absorbed impacts, energy blasts, and falling ice, allowing her to stay focused entirely on the cadets' safety. By dawn, the enemy forces had retreated. They had suffered confusion, minor injuries, and frustration. The cadets were safe, exhausted, but alive. They gathered around Lyra, looking at her jacket and the calm determination in her eyes. "You survived," Roke said, voice trembling. "No," Lyra said softly. "We survived. Together." Above, Commander Vexel finally spoke clearly. "Human, your skill, your leadership, your patience. I have no words. I cannot deny it. You have shown strength no armor or weapon can match." The cadets listened in awe. They had survived monsters, storms, enemy soldiers, and exhaustion. And it had been the human with the old earth jacket who had guided them every step of the way. Lyra adjusted the jacket one last time, the fabric worn, patched, and tested beyond limits. It had protected her, allowed her to guide others, and survive challenges no one else could endure. The frozen moon was silent, cold, and vast. The night had passed. The enemies had retreated. The storm was gone. The cadets looked at Lyra with respect and admiration. They had learned that survival was not about technology, not about shields, and not about weapons. It was about observation, patience, courage, and knowledge. Commander Vexel remained silent, but his expression had changed. Respect, understanding, and a hint of awe filled his eyes. For the first time, he truly realized the strength of humans. Lyra smiled faintly. The moon was quiet, but she knew challenges would come again. She had survived the night, guided the cadets, and shown that knowledge and courage were stronger than any weapon. And the cadets understood, finally, what true survival meant. Humans survived in ways no alien, no machine, and no weapon could ever match it. The frozen moon stretched endlessly, silent and cold, but Lyra and her cadets had conquered it. The instructor's silence was finally broken, not by words, but by recognition. The lesson was clear. Strength was not in armor. Strength was not in weapons. Strength was in the mind, the courage, and the will to survive. And Lyra Hale, in her old Earth jacket, had proven it.